Welcome to the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast, the go-to place to gain financial freedom through real estate investing. Here we interview investors, mentors, and entrepreneurs who share their secrets and advice to help you build passive income. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, this is Agostino. In recent years, short-term rental services like Airbnb and VRBO have changed how people travel while maximizing rental income for property owners. Well, today's guests, they saw this trend and developed processes and technology around short-term rentals to help landlords implement these systems in their portfolio. They wanted to help investors generate residual income by increasing their financial literacy around short-term rentals to further cash flow their real estate investments. So today, our guests, they lead STR Properties, a technology-driven luxury short-term rental hosting company where they optimize every aspect of a property to ensure maximum occupancy and profits. With all that, I'd like to welcome Janie and Kyle Duelund to the show. Hey guys, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having us. We're super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. Well, before we go on, if you like what Janie and Kyle have to say, you can reach them via the website at str-properties.com. And of course, if you like our content, please don't forget to leave a comment and rate the show. All right, Kyle, go ahead. Tell the listeners about how you guys got your start.
All right. Yeah, my pleasure. What a story. Well, it all started over a handful of years ago when Janie and I decided that Canada's real estate was just not going to cut it for us. And so a little fact you might not know, but Janie and I are Canadian, and yet we've made our wealth in U.S. real estate. And so about a handful of years ago, we decided to jump the border and start investing in the U.S. And we got started Cleveland, Ohio, of all the places. And we got started very humbly. We bought a first single-family home, $9,000 in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. After putting in a bit of money into its renovations, $30,000's worth, we refinanced it, got all our money back, burned it out, and did it again and again and again and again. But being Canadian, we are limited with the amount of time that we can spend in the US without a visa. And so we were capped out at 6 months, but we wanted to keep going. So we said, okay, well, now we're out of time in the US. How do we continue growing our business, growing our wealth? We love real estate so much, just how do we do it? And so we decided to start another company, a company that can work anywhere in the world. And it can work in Canada, in where we are right now in Montreal, or it could work in Cleveland, or it could work in Florida, or all these other locations in the world that we just love to go. And so that's where we decided to start STR Properties, short-term rental properties, where we don't buy the properties. We partner with property owners across the world, primarily in Canada and the US right now, but we have the capabilities to go internationally. We partner with owners who already purchased the properties, and then we bring in, like you mentioned, the systems and all the optimizations in there to, instead of catering to long-term, month-to-month or year-to-year tenants, we cater to daily or weekly guests. And in the process, you can charge hotel rates rather than long-term tenant rates. So the true win-win for us and for our partners.
Nice. So as a partner then, so basically I am the person that has the asset, that has the house or whatever it might be, and I would just give you a call and say, hey, I have this unit. I'd like to maximize the income on this property. Can you help me with this? That's where you come in?
That's exactly right. Our potential partners hear us on different podcasts or through our websites or Facebook. And that's basically how it starts. Hey, I got this property. This is the address. This is the type of listing it is. Is it a luxury property or is it just your standard old apartment? How many bedrooms does it have? And really, that's all we need. The address and the number of bedrooms that a typical listing has. And from there, we can start doing our market due diligence. We pull market data. So we're connected on the back end of these websites like Airbnb and VRBO, and we're able to see what your property's location is performing based on comparable listings. And so in a matter of minutes, we can push that, well, not push, but we can send it to someone who's interested in our service, and we can give the market average. What do they expect that their unit generates for them on a yearly basis? What is the average occupancy rate for that area? And the ADR, the average daily rate, which is numbers that you're maybe less familiar with in the multifamily space, but in the hospitality business, hotel industry, those are numbers that are very pertinent to an investor.
Right. So are you doing mainly luxury then? Because it sounds like you do more luxury than your standard run-of-the-mill type of place, right?
No, so we don't necessarily do just luxury, but what we do is we take a standard listing and turn it into more of a luxury feel to it. So by staging it properly with a designer, by taking photographs with a professional photography, we put in the nice linen, the hotel amenities like the little soaps, that kind of stuff. So it actually turns a very basic listing into a more luxurious one.
Nice. So I know you guys do a lot of business here in Cleveland. Are you guys basically then just concentrating on one certain area or certain key cities when you're doing a new launch, or do you guys basically just cover anywhere and everywhere?
So our long-term holdings have started in Cleveland, Ohio. We've branched out Michigan and Florida as well, because we do also do mobile home parks and multifamily as well. But the short-term rental space, we're actually in 7 cities right now. And like Kyle mentioned earlier, we have the potential of going international. So for us, it doesn't really matter where your listings are, as long as the market really makes sense for everyone involved.
Nice. Good. So as an owner then, why should I hire you guys? Why should I even call STR if I think, well, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do it myself? Why shouldn't I do that? Why is that a bad idea?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a bad idea? That's a good question. Now, of course, you can, and anybody could go through the rigmarole and learn by themselves. But this is a question to the audience and the listeners. Do you have that time to invest? It took us over 2 years of nonstop, I'm going to learn how to do this the right way. And that was on top of hiring mentors who were already doing that, who can teach us and fast track our learning curve. If you want to do it, go ahead, power to you. But what we're offering, or what we're aiming to offer, is really this full service where the property owner, you've already bought the property. Okay, that's the hardest part. You've already bought it. Now just follow our recommendations and our checklist to, like Janie mentioned, luxurify it, right? Just make it that wow factor on pictures and that 5-star experience that guests are looking for. What is just missing to get over that bump? Once the unit is ready for us, we take it over, and within 48 hours of the professional photographies being in our possession, we can be live on our first channels.
But what makes STR really STR is all our systems behind it. So you mentioned it really nicely at the beginning, where we're a luxury technology-driven company. So what backs us up is our optimization softwares for the pricing, for example. You know, if there's an event in your neighborhood, our softwares will know about it. And so we'll adjust the prices accordingly. And that's also something that really optimizes your listing in Airbnb, for example, and other booking channels, where just the fluctuations in prices can really rank us in the first pages of Airbnb, for example. Everything that we do is backed by very specific softwares to optimize everything about your listing. And one thing that people do on their own is, okay, let's start this Airbnb listing. Well, guests happen to message you 24 hours a day. You know, if you have more than one listing, do you want to be answering guests 24 hours a day? STR definitely will take care of that. So we have a team of virtual assistants that works with us on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week. And that's one thing that we do for you. So not only do we back everything up by technology-driven softwares, we also have a team of virtual assistants that takes care of everything for you.
So it sounds like the person who really benefit from something like this, then from this platform, would be someone that, for instance, may buy a string of these assets and, you know what, I want to manage the Airbnb, or I want to have the Airbnb experience, but I'm not the person to handle all that stuff. So I'll just hand it over to you guys and you just run with it. I can see myself doing that. That's something I would do.
Well, definitely for people that have more than one listing, that's a no-brainer. And we cater to everybody, even the homeowner that just doesn't want to take care of guest communications, that wants to make sure that their listing is optimized when there's a problem on Airbnb or other platforms, or the resolution center. So there's many little things, aspects of doing short-term rentals that could be stressful for the average person that we definitely take on, because we just do it professionally.
Right.
So from the small homeowner who wants to just rent out a bedroom to their first property, to a multimillionaire with a lot of listings that want to do Airbnb and actually increase their NOI, then we definitely can help with that as well.
And maybe if I'll just add another benefit of someone who's in the multifamily space, because most of the people listening here probably are or looking to be, is that you have at your fingertips dozens, if not hundreds of listings. You can start small, test it out. How is your market reacting? How is your unit reacting to the model? And if it's wow and everyone's super happy with the numbers, well, then put another one, put 5 more, put 10 more. And you can, within yourself, saturate or test the optimal ratio between long-term and short-terms within your own portfolio, which I think is very sexy.
Well, you know what, though? I think it can serve the multifamily people just like myself. I mean, I have a unit right now. It's a great location. It's a C-class property, B location, not furnished, of course, but it sounds like a perfect candidate to say, you know what, I have a vacancy right now while we're trying to get the unit rented. I could turn it over to you guys, get some cash flow out of it while we're trying to figure out how to get this thing rented up, right?
Especially if you're the type of investor who already furnishes your listings before you rent. You're renting the premium, fully furnished, ready to go listings. Absolutely. If you're not usually furnishing, that it might be a bigger pill to swallow for the short-term gain, but otherwise, absolutely.
Right. I guess it really just depends, because I know that from a cash flow perspective, if you do have a multifamily property, like say this, I'm just picturing, say 100-unit multifamily property, and you are getting income from Airbnb, typically that is not included as income overall, or I guess it's not, because it's not a lease, supposedly. So I don't know if you guys ever encountered anything like that, but a couple of lenders had told me that before. So I don't know how realistic that is or not, but might be a caveat for whoever's listening, right?
Well, in fact, there are lenders who specifically mortgage for Airbnb properties.
Oh, good.
So just like in anything, there is a spectrum. Maybe the lenders that you went to, and I don't know when you asked that question specifically either, but the market is changing. Airbnb is taking a larger place in the story, in the front light. In my experience, no, the lenders do consider Airbnb income, and especially being a commercial loan, part of the appraisal is based on the income it generates. So, I mean, that asset is generating that income. So, end of story, it should affect its appraisal. I would definitely, if you're interested in the model and you're going in that direction with short-term rentals, find a lender who does include it, because it makes a huge difference on the appraisal and therefore on the value and the refinance or your exit.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I mean, just to your point, you're able to improve income. So just by, for instance, adjusting the price depending on what events are in the area or whatever the case may be. I'm sure you have other ways to do it too, but that's going to drive overall NOI. So by that logic, yeah, you're increasing the overall value of that asset. It's huge. It could be huge. Yeah. But again, it comes down to finding out a lender. I don't think the lenders I'm dealing with, they don't really do much of the Airbnb. They're very somewhat traditional. So that's good to know that.
But then we can always get a little bit creative. And I mean, STR can sign leases, corporate leases as well. If something, we can be creative as well. So
now, how does that work? How does the corporate lease work?
Yeah, so there's many ways to slice the cake with short-term rentals, like anything in real estate. The lease to lease or the rental arbitrage model would be, for example, STR Properties would sign a lease for a certain amount, and then we on the other side, we do what we have to do, and we keep any spread above the lease amount, right? That's one way to do the model. It's typically the way that tenants get away with doing the short-term rentals inside a multifamily unit that they don't own, right? So I'm going to ask the question: how many of your tenants are doing this right now without your permission and are, profiting on your backs? Is that good or bad? That's up to you to decide, but it's certainly happening, especially if you're rolling in the triple digits. 100%, you've got at least a handful of your tenants doing it. But nonetheless, what they're doing is exactly that. They have their lease. They're doing what they need to do to get the additional income, and they're keeping the spread anything above the lease. A business could write up the lease and do the same thing. It's actually how we got started at STR Properties. We've moved away from that because we wanted to give the owners the bigger piece of the pie. We will just want to bring our services and our systems to the mix, keep this percentage, but keep the lion's share to the investor, because ultimately we're not looking to just rip off as much as we can off one unit. We're really looking for growth, scalability within our own business as well. So we're keeping a smaller amount, but want more business.
Excellent. So I know you guys are growing fast. You guys are going into different markets. How do you navigate those markets that are being somewhat difficult? Dealing with, say, certain cities that maybe the hotels are all up in arms about the Airbnb phenomenon. Like how do you deal with that, and how do you navigate those certain scenarios?
It's a really good question. I mean, as a hosting company and a management company, basically, we're not the owner. So, for instance, let's take Montreal, for example, who's a city that has a very hard time with Airbnb. They're not liking it at all. So, as an owner, they have to be aware that there's laws and regulation for Airbnb. Now, as a hosting company, it's part of our due diligence to look at those regulations, but it's the owner's responsibility to adhere to them. We're here to serve them and to service their units, but it's not up to us to basically be
in compliance.
In compliance. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
We can help all of our owners through, like, okay, you probably want to call this person, you probably want to call this insurance company to make sure that everything is in check with that model as well. We can help through the process, but the onus is not on us because we're not the owners. The owners provide a product to a certain standard. They have taken the decision to do short-term rentals, and then we are just going to optimize that decision for them.
I heard about some extreme case where someone actually arrested a husband and wife for having an Airbnb, which is ridiculous in my opinion. But have you guys ever experienced anything like that before?
Were they running a brothel?
No. I got to find the whole story on this, but yeah, it's terrible. All I know is that they were running an Airbnb and someone didn't like it, and next thing you know, they're arrested. I think the mugshot, they were shocked. There was just nothing but shock in their faces. So yeah.
No, I mean, what we've been hearing so far in those harder areas is that the cities are starting to talk more about sending out some
inspectors or random audits,
right, to discontinue working with short-term rentals guests. So that's one thing, and then they send out the invoices, and you have to pay some penalty, and then you have to discontinue. And obviously, once you get those notices, you're on their red flag list. So it'll be very hard for you to continue doing that. That's where it is right now, but it's still very much of a gray zone, and it depends on the cities.
Right.
We've only come across that in one city. It was Montreal, Quebec, where it's been in the media a lot. There's been a lot of buzz around Airbnb for the last 3 years and just recently. And it always starts with complaints. People who allow parties, for example, who allow loud noises and who are not professional hosts, or they don't keep an eye on the listings. Those are the first ones that are going to get attacked, and the notices are going to be served. And what Janie was mentioning, that particular example, was someone who disregarded the notice and kept doing it. So then, I mean, at that point, you're in clear infraction and there will be penalties. But there are ways to navigate it. Even in Montreal, Quebec, there is a process. There are steps to take to become legal and to become a bed and breakfast listing compliant with the province and with the city and with the municipality. There are ways to do it the right way. It's just very lengthy and somewhat costly to do it. It's still worthwhile to do it, but most people just get enamored with the idea of short-term listings and they just go on. It takes them a couple hours to create a very mediocre listing, but they're live and they start seeing this income coming in. And so they say, oh, things are rolling. I don't need to go through all the legal stuff. Yet they get pinched. Mm-hmm. They're not doing it professionally.
Right. And the thing is, though, is that you'll help them. You'll walk them through, even in a place like Montreal, to get compliant, right, as part of your service, right?
That's Absolutely. Right. That's right.
Yeah, which is a big deal, obviously. I mean, we don't want to get out there and break the law. But it sounds to me like, just like you said, that it's people that are doing something not necessarily wrong. They're bringing attention to themselves, like throwing a giant party or saying parties are allowed at my Airbnb. Well, you're asking for the cops to show up, right? You're asking for trouble.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So are there certain listings then like that you won't take on? I mean, are there certain listings where, it could be a high risk individual that they just want to go on the outer fringes to try to maximize it, so they're going to accept all kinds of stuff. I mean, are you going to exclude them from taking part in your service?
Yeah, so we have a checklist of things that we go through before we accept a listing to make sure that everyone's compliant and that they maintain our standards of not perfection, but almost. So there's cities like Seattle and San Francisco. Those areas are a lot harder. And the cities, quite frankly, they're really working hard at restraining short-term rentals. And they're doing a good job at it, unfortunately, for the people who are actually doing short-term rentals. It would be really case by case. And like you said, we don't want to break the law or anything. So we'll do our best to navigate those waters. But in the case that it just doesn't make sense, it just doesn't make sense.
Now, do you find that there's any type of overlap in the regular rental market? So aside from Airbnb, I know that you've probably heard in the news about rent control and all these different things. Has that had any type of impact at all on your type of business?
Not so far, no.
Is there a way to use Airbnb as a way to maximize? So instead of doing these rent control type of locations like California, for instance, just flip it over to an Airbnb. I mean, is that a strategy anybody's employed?
It has been, and it's easy to flip a property from a long-term listing to a short-term rental. But then it just depends on, is that what the investor wants to do? It's not difficult to do for sure.
Right.
And one advantage in the other direction, turning a long-term to short-term is one thing, but turning short-term to long-term is also considered. Oftentimes guests, I won't say 50% of the time, but it does happen on a regular basis that some of our guests, we ask them, why are you traveling to town? And they'll answer something like, well, I'm looking for a place. All right. This is their landing pad from another country, another state, whatever. They're just going to Airbnb because it's typically just a more affordable way to get all the amenities of like a condo or timeshare type property. And so oftentimes when we're in a market and we don't personally own any listings in that market, we just hand it off to people we know who have listings. Hey, I got this guest, they're looking for a place. Do you have any place available? And then they go through their applications and vet to see if they'd be a good long-term tenant. So, I mean, in this particular situation, you have an apartment building. Someone says, hey, I'm looking for a place. Well, you probably have one just upstairs, just waiting for them. And it's just a hop, skip, and a jump away for the viewing.
Yeah, excellent. Well, so it seems to me like that could be a good way to get around some of these crazy madness laws that are coming into effect today. That's for sure. That's for sure. Now, what do you see the next 5 years for your business looking like?
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, it is exciting. As I mentioned earlier, we have the capability to go international, and we're looking to do that as well. We have the systems and the teams in place to go anywhere we want. So really, we're just picking cities that we like right now across Canada and the US, and soon it'll be international. We're just developing one market at a time. What Janie mentioned, we're in 7 cities right now, and these are 7 cities in which we offer what we call the full service hosting service, the full service. We can offer a dialed down version of what we do, international as it is right now. So someone would call me up and say, hey, I've got this property in Thailand. Okay, well, do you have these things? And if they say yes, we can onboard a property there immediately. We just haven't advertised or anything like that yet. So in the next 12 to 24 months, I would like that to be out in the open and everyone knows that STR properties can accommodate that for them. The other thing that we'd like to launch in the next 12 months, not so much multifamily, but STR properties would like to be the poster child for, imagine this, close your eyes and imagine this. Are you paying for rent or mortgage right now? Why? With STR properties, let us pay for your rent or mortgage. Whereas someone just getting started in real estate can buy their primary residence with an extra bedroom and have that extra bedroom hosted by us and having guests pay for their mortgage just with that extra bedroom. We want to get known as the company who can do that for people. House hacking within your primary residence, as opposed to with a duplex or triplex.
That's awesome. They could just do an end-to-end service aspect. That's beautiful. Love it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the beauty with short-term rentals is that if you buy your asset, your multifamily right, so bottom line, your NOI with long-term tenants, if you buy right and you increase its value or its income with short-term rentals, and you don't have to do the whole thing with short-term rentals, but just a few units here and there that you can just use as short-term rentals, that increases the NOI, and you can ride the wave. Now, we don't know how long short-term rentals are here for. It's been about 10 years where Airbnb has been on the market, and it's growing stronger every single day. I think they were saying that they're taking on about 100,000 new clients a day. So they're growing at an exponential rate. But nonetheless, cities are sometimes it's a little tough here and there, but it's still growing quite a bit. The beauty is if you buy your asset right, then at any time you can revert back to a long-term tenant and just continue doing what you have to do. In the meantime, though, you can make some really good income. So if you buy right, and you know, Agostino, I mean, you have to buy right. And that's where you make your money. So it's the same thing in short-term rentals. Buy right, increase its value by doing short-term rentals. And then if at any point you don't like it or the market dies down, then we can always revert back to long-term tenants.
And at that point, you have a premium listing that's furnished, professionally decorated. Anyways, you're going to be at least 10, 20, maybe 30% above market for sure on those listings because they're premium.
Awesome. Love it. May have to give it a shot then of some of our deals. That's for sure. I might just do that. All right, guys. Well, if you want to get a hold of Janie and Kyle, you can reach them via their company website, str-properties.com. I'll include a link in the description. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Agostino. It was a real pleasure.
It really was. And I'd also like to add that since we did have so much fun today, I'd like to put out a special offer for anybody listening.
Yeah.
So really quickly, how to get in touch with us. You go to our website or you can email us at info@str-properties.com. If you just input your property's address, we will send out a complimentary market averages report for you to just get a little taste of what one of your listings inside of your multifamily or inside your mobile home park can do for you. And from there, we can have a conversation. And if in that email you mention Agostino or the name of this podcast, we will give you a 5% discount on our hosting services just for mentioning and for being part and listening today.
Awesome. Love it. Take advantage of it, guys. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Agostino. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. For more free podcasts, articles, videos, and resources, go to www.bulletproofcashflow.com.